Good morning, everybody. It is the 7th of November, and I'm now reading the agenda for today's class. So the first thing we're going to do is go over upcoming events. This is an unusual week. There are several events taking place and also a holiday on Friday. So I'm going to go over all of that. And then we're going to read about the Progressive Era. That's the next article in the textbook. That should be fun. And I'm going to introduce a concept called consumer advocacy. And I skipped this one. After I described the upcoming events, we're going to discuss robber barons, which is the beginning of the chapter. And we're going to compare a little bit of US history to history around the world. And that, I think, will be my favorite part of the class, because I'll hear about the history of business where all of you come from. So then, after I introduce the concept of consumer advocacy, I'll introduce two consumer advocacy organizations called the USDA and FDA. And that will also tie in with the article in chapter 2. And then we're going to brainstorm questions to ask for Wednesday. So Wednesday, if you saw in Google Classroom, there's another banking workshop. You get to see the slides that the volunteers will read, and you can get ahead of it. So you can learn new vocabulary, and then you can already have questions for them prepared. That is the agenda. So let's get started. You can tell I'm a little bit congested today. Got a little cold. So let's move right along. Okay, so two upcoming events. There will be no class Thursday or Friday. Those of you who signed up for the Plymouth trip, that will be happening on November 10th. So if you signed up, you know who you are. And the whole school, all of our staff, many students couldn't come. All of our staff will be there. So there will be no class on Thursday. So if you signed up, you know who you are, you're coming. But if you're not coming, there will be no classes because all your teachers will be there. Friday is a federal holiday. It's Veterans Day. So that's 11/11/22, double 11, you might call it. So Friday is a holiday, Thursday is a field trip. Also, Wednesday, whoops, hang on a second. Wednesday, where is that? Oh, I guess I didn't take, okay, I'll just take it off of Google Classroom right now. Wednesday, as you know, there is another banking workshop. That's what I put here in Google Classroom. So Wednesday, you can get a head start with the banking workshop. The same bank volunteers will be presenting a workshop on credit. So those of you who are waiting for your social security numbers or your tax ID numbers, once you get one, you want to start building credit. So then you can start applying for loans. And that's what that workshop is about. So if you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, you want to rent an apartment, all of these things, you need credit. And that's what the workshop is about on Wednesday. That is it. So moving right along. Let's take a moment to look at this old political cartoon. And I'm going to embrace a little silence here. I'm going to mute myself. And you can take turns. Take a look at this old cartoon, circa 1900. 1890s, 1900. It's from Puck Magazine. Take a look at what you see and start sharing your observations. I'm going to mute myself, so I'm not saying a word. When you feel like sharing, I'll just write in the margins a few words that comes up. When you feel like talking, go for it. So tell us what you see. Take your time.
Uh, I think teacher, it's like the people, like it looks like the labor something. They're around and some people who are, I think, maybe the richer, they are sitting up on them.
Okay, so
And there is a lot of, I think, the money or something,
Is the
big bags of money.
the slave job? I think is the
slave jobs. Well, perhaps. It says right here how much people are getting paid to do what type of work. So is that really slavery? Or is it similar?
it's similar because pay but not enough.
Say it again, please.
Pay the work but not enough.
Okay. So let's use this word. I wrote down the word labor from Manila, and let's say low wages. Low wages. Low pay.
Okay.
Good. Who else can share what they see? So Nilla said labor, Doris said low wages. Any other observations in the picture that we see?
Teacher,
Yes, Gene.
yeah, the picture show us how hard the injustice that we have in our society.
Injustice, that's a good word.
Yeah, injustice, yes.
How so?
Some people got a lot of money and try to maybe how can I say that? So they don't pay well the labor.
Ah, yes. All right.
And there are teachers sitting on the bags. They say the millions, I think. They sell
Yes.
the money and
Yes. Very good. Do you notice any of the
I think,
words? Oh yeah, go for it, Daniel.
yeah, I think it's a kind of slave. I don't know the adjective for slave, but the rich people it's on top, and the poor people is down to keep all the charge, the how can I say fado? I don't know, but it's mean that the rich people it's up, and the the poor is down.
Okay, so we could say upper class and lower class.
Yes, something like that.
Upper class, lower class. I'll give you a phrase. We call this in America the 99% and the 1%. So when Americans say the 1%, they're talking about who?
They talk about the rich people.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Is that Lunik? Very good. So yeah, these are phrases. So yes, the 1%, we're talking about the super rich, or we could say wealthy. Wealthy. That's a word for the super, super, super rich. There's rich and then there's super rich. And that would be these names from history. Cornelius Vanderbilt, Jay Gould, Andrew Carnegie, the robber barons that we've been reading about. And then the 99%, who's that?
Poor people.
Yeah, or you could say everybody else. Poor people are everybody else. Good. Any other observations? What types of businesses are represented?
Teacher, I see exploitation. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good word.
Yes.
Beautiful, Deborah. Yes.
Yeah.
Exploitation. Can you explain this word?
Yeah, because I see the rich people on top and the workers holding the bosses. This is clear exploitation.
Yes. To be exploited. Exploitation. Excellent word right there.
Yeah.
Very nice. Good job. Let's keep going. Any other observations? You can see how are the people here dressed? How is this man dressed? How is this man dressed? Are they all doing the same job, or are they representing different jobs?
Robber barons.
What type of work do we see represented in the picture?
Best class,
Say it again, Lunik.
the best class. The poor
Well,
people.
my question is, what type of work? Because you see, this man, he's wearing a bow tie and a vest, and this man has got a hammer, and this man has his sleeves rolled up.
I think, teacher, there are different kind of like workers from different, like all like workers in all fields.
Yes, different fields. There you go. Good job. Good job. Who can identify some of these different type fields that we see represented in the picture? Different fields. Different fields.
Yeah, some of them are maybe working in hotel, and they are, I see, like there is the hammer things, they holding.
Yes, yes.
And
yeah, it says it right there. What's that word right there? Linens.
Linens.
Linens are sheets, like textiles. Well, you would know that word. Linens are like cloth, like a tablecloth or fabric to make clothes.
Oh, okay, that linens, yeah.
Like garment factories, that type of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Well, actually, this would be cloth. This would more be like cleaning, laundry, iron.
Like they looks like teacher, they are working in some factories.
Some are, some aren't. This is who knows this word? Lumber. Lumber. What is that? Probably a new word. If you don't know the word, look at
Lumber, teacher.
what are they holding up? What do you think they're holding? So the iron workers are holding metal. The linen workers are holding sheets. The lumber workers are holding what? What do we see here?
Wood.
Wood, yes.
Wood.
Lumber is cutting trees and processing wood for construction. Good job, Deborah. And then we have other fields. Now we see boots. Boots. So these people work in other fields. Leather. We see boots. So these people work in. I hear the echo of myself on Ano's computer.
We see painting,
Yes, excellent.
paper,
Paint,
books.
oils, books, very good. Very good. Paper, excellent, excellent, excellent. So this is a political cartoon of its time in the era of robber barons. Now, I'm going to show you a short history to help out the article that we read in the beginning of chapter, but I've got a twist for the breakout room discussion. Here's the twist. The concept of very, very rich people, the 1%, and everybody else, the 99%. Is this only America? Are we special? Yeah, Anila says no. So Anila has pointed out. I've got to mute somebody here. Somebody's got a really messed up microphone. Let's see, who is not muted right now? It looks like okay, great. Thank you, Anila. All right. So yeah, most of you could probably see something very similar in other places you've lived. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you, after we look at this history of America's robber barons, the titans of industry that we read about, I'm going to show you a very short video of the robber barons in America, the first almost completely unregulated, very wealthy business people. Then I'm going to ask you, who are the robber barons in the history of your country? So I'm probably
robber barons.
I imagine if we look at, say, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan, the people we learned about in American history, you could probably compare some similar figures in the history of your country. People who became very, very wealthy. And I'm going to use the word that I forgot which student was. They became wealthy by exploiting other people. So when you watch this, think about examples of robber barons where you are from or other places you've lived. If you've lived in many countries, think about other examples of robber barons. Who are those super, super rich people that became wealthy by hurting other people? So I'm going to play this video, then I'm going to send you into breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask you to identify who are the robber barons in the history of your country. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. I only see Anila nodding her head. Everybody else has their camera off. So, oh no, Svetlana has her camera on. So they are representing, they are the representatives. So everybody else who's camera on, and Daniel too. So as long as Daniel, Anila, and Svetlana nod their heads, that means everybody understands. If you don't understand, turn your camera on and go like this. Okay, everybody. Yep, I see only heads nodding. There you go.
Who were the richest tycoons in America? Robber barons. Who were the richest tycoons in America? In the late 19th century and early 20th century, there were Americans who made vast amounts of wealth. These tycoons gained the derogatory nickname robber barons because of the questionable methods they used to acquire their fortunes and build their vast industrial empires. Andrew Carnegie, steel, net worth $310 billion US. Andrew Carnegie was born in poverty in Scotland and emigrated to the United States as a child. Here, he worked as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He then worked as a telegraphic operator and a railroad worker. As a railroad worker, he would invest in iron and oil companies. He recognized a need to replace wooden bridges with newer steel bridges for the railroads being built across America. Turning his focus to producing steel during the 1870s, using the Bessemer steel-making process, he would become extremely successful in the industry and contribute to America's surpassing of Great Britain's steel output from 1890. Later, he would form the Carnegie Steel Company. In 1892, the Homestead strike emerged when his company tried to lower wages and increase working hours in what were dangerous conditions. A battle would break out in Carnegie Steel's main plant in Homestead, Pennsylvania, between workers and Pinkerton detectives, which only came to an end when 8,000 armed state militia were brought in. He would sell the Carnegie Steel Company to J.P. Morgan's United States Steel Corporation in 1901 for what was then $480 million US. When Carnegie retired at 64, he devoted his life to philanthropy. In his generosity, he funded a vast number of public libraries, universities, and charities around the world. John D. Rockefeller, oil. Net worth, 300 to 400 billion US. John D. Rockefeller would make his riches in the oil industry and is considered by many to be the wealthiest man in American history. At age 16, Rockefeller started off as a humble bookkeeper in Cleveland, Ohio. In the 1860s, he started investing in the petroleum industry and took over local refineries by buying them out. At the age of 31, he started the Standard Oil Company, and at one point, a cartel was used, an unfair practice of forcing competitors to pay extortionate shipping costs, where his company paid low prices for such services. This would drive his competitors out of business. By 1890, Standard Oil controlled 90% of the oil in the USA. This monopoly led to the Sherman Antitrust Act in the same year. In his later years in retirement, Rockefeller donated his wealth to philanthropic causes. Cornelius Vanderbilt, water transport and railroads. Net worth, 105 to 205 billion US. Vanderbilt was born in Staten Island, New York in 1794. He was a son of a boatman and quit school at age 11 to work on his father's ferry. At age 16, he purchased his own boat by borrowing money from his parents and made profit by ferrying commuters into Manhattan. During the War of 1812, he used his boats to transport supplies to forts along New York Harbor. After this, Vanderbilt started to develop a steamship business while working for Thomas Gibbons as a steamship captain, and in 1829, he was working for himself. He then dominated the maritime trade along the Hudson River, offering better fares than his competitors. The California Gold Rush of 1849 provided another opportunity, so Vanderbilt created a service called the Accessory Transit Company, which would transport passengers and cargo through Nicaragua towards California on the West Coast. He made an offer to his competitors, which were close to ruin. He would end the Accessory Transit Company, which was more efficient than their transportation methods, if he was paid a stipend of $40,000 a month, an offer they accepted and increased when he threatened to open it again. At 70, he moved from shipping to railroads and acquired the New York Central Railroad. Eventually, he had rail lines reaching as far as Chicago. J.P. Morgan, banking. Net worth, 42 billion US. The son of a banker, John Pierpont Morgan, went to Harvard University, and once he graduated, worked at the banking firm George Peabody and Company in London, then became an accountant in Duncan, Sherman and Company in New York. In 1861, he became an agent of his father's bank. During the American Civil War, he became involved in a financing scheme known as the Hall Carbine Affair, where he purchased 5,000 rifles for $3.50 each from the government and resold them back for $22 each. In 1871, he formed the Drexel, Morgan and Company with Anthony Drexel, which became the J.P. Morgan and Company in 1895, after Drexel had died. During this time, he also formed the merger General Electric. J.P. Morgan became an important financier of the railroads across America, and in 1901 helped form the first billion-dollar corporation in American history, the United States Steel Corporation, a merger that included the giant Carnegie Steel Company. While his wealth was more modest than other robber barons, J.P. Morgan is importantly known as the person who reduced chaotic competition by merging companies to bring order to the American economy. He would also help Wall Street get through the financial crisis known as the Panic of 1907.
Okay, so here's what I've asked everyone to do. If anybody has just joined us or stepped away, what I ask everybody is to recognize who are the robber barons in the history of your country. So all the different parts of the world you come from, who would be the Andrew Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, and so forth? Who would be the same people who became very, very successful but hurt other people along the way? And I wrote down, think of examples for breakout room discussions, okay? So I'm going to put you into several breakout rooms, and this is where you get to talk about where you come from or places you've lived, and you can think about different figures in the history of that place that are similar to the robber barons in the US. Okay, any questions before we go into breakout rooms? All right, here we go. Recording. Okay, everybody, we just finished. And here's an activator question. How involved do you want the government to be in your breakfast? Go for it, Deborah. What do you want to say?
I think, teacher, they tested everything, like the whatever we eat, the milk, the meat.
Yes.
So it's important for us. We have to test it, whatever we eat.
Perfect, Camilla. Excellent. All right, everybody, let's look up these two acronyms. FDA. Who could tell me what this is? You can just Google it quickly. What? Yeah.
Federal Department of something.
Agriculture. Or actually, that's the USDA. Hold on a second. Everybody look up FDA. Tell us what it is.
Drug Administration.
Food and Drug Administration. Food and Drug Administration. There it is. Food and Drug Administration. There you go. So, what is USDA? You know, US means United States, but what is the DA for?
Department of Agriculture.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have the Food and Drug Administration, and they obviously regulate food and drugs. And then we have the US Department of Agriculture. What is agriculture? The production of our food.
The projects.
Now tell us, Daniel.
Yeah, the production of food like plantain, something natural like
Yes,
plantain.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great example. So let's say, do you remember when I gave you the writing assignment about government and business? This is where the debate between government and business the debate between government and business gets much more interesting. Okay, how many of you have picked a plantain off of a tree? Picked anything, fruit, pick something out of the ground to eat it.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Who said tomatoes? There you go. So Anila, all right. So yes, so let's say Anila grows tomatoes in her yard. And let's say, Daniel, you mentioned plantains. Let's say you've got a plantain tree. And you pick a bunch of plantains. Every year you harvest your own plantains. And let's say, I'm just going to keep going. And this is where the picture comes in. Olha, you've got a cow. And the cow gives a lot of milk, and you start bottling the milk. And each one of you would like a little small business. So Daniel's got his plantains to sell. Anila's got her tomatoes to sell. Olha has her milk to sell. Now, how easy is it for all of them to make money with all of these agricultural products they are producing?
I think here it's not easy because they have to check it before sell it. We have to sell. The government, they will check it, test it.
Exactly. So this is where government and business, the question for the writing assignment, come into question. If Anila has extra tomatoes and she wants to sell them to her classmates, she might be breaking the law. Of course, you know, I don't think she's going to get caught selling 5 tomatoes unless somebody wants to turn her in to the USDA or FDA. These things do actually happen. For instance, beekeeping. A lot of people keep bees on their roofs and they sell the honey. And that is an agricultural product. It has to be inspected by the government and approved by the government. And that's a long process. And it can be a very expensive process for business. So if you want your cow to give milk, you have to prove that your cow passes many tests, health and safety standards. You have to pasteurize your milk, which means heating it to a certain temperature to kill any diseases, and then cooling it. And these have to be done in commercial dairy facilities that are approved. So if Anila has her garden with tomatoes, she's got to make sure she can prove that her tomatoes are not using any dangerous chemicals that are not banned by the government. And this process can be long and expensive. What does everybody think about this? Should government be involved in your breakfast?
But I think teacher, I saw here in the US they are very strict with those things.
Yeah.
But in my country, most of the people they just sell it directly to the customer. Yeah, most of the farmers they just get the milk from cow, and we all people buy.
I can hear the birds in the background. I can hear Anila's birds. Yeah. So yeah, that used to be that way. It used to be exactly that way about 130 years ago. Before the USDA and before the FDA, there was no regulation of our food and our drugs. If you wanted to grow some plantains in your yard, you have a backyard, you want to grow some potatoes, sell the potatoes, go right ahead. Government doesn't get in your way. And people would grow things on their property. And that was kind of America at a more tame, less developed, less, I'll use a word, bureaucratic time, a simpler time. Well, I'll just say, what does everybody think about that? Should government be involved with what we put in our bodies? If I want to put something into my body, is it the government's business? I want to try Anila's tomatoes. I want to go buy milk from Old House Cow. I want to go get Daniel's plantains and make my dinner. Should the government get involved with that decision I'm making of what I want to put in my body? Everybody, what do you think?
Yes, Pepe, teacher. I think it is the job of the government to make sure that what we eat is healthy and can damage our body.
Beautiful argument. Beautiful argument. And Jean, I'm going to give you this concept. Consumer advocacy. Everybody say it with me. Consumer advocacy.
Consumer advocacy.
Consumer advocacy, yes. So the concept of consumer advocacy really began at the beginning of the last century. Things that we purchase as consumers, they have to be approved by government at some level. I'll give you other examples. So food that we purchase, anything we're going to put into our bodies, food or medicine. I have a headache, I want to get aspirin. That bottle of aspirin has to be inspected by the FDA and be FDA approved. I want to buy milk at the supermarket. That milk has to be approved by the US Department of Agriculture. Otherwise, it's illegal. So the government's very, very much involved in our personal lives, more than we might think. Some people like this and some people don't like this. It depends on your life experience. Now, other examples. Who here owns a car? Does anybody own a car?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured there were several of you. What do you need to get every year on the windshield of your car? It has a date. You put a sticker on your
Inspection.
inspection. Yes.
Yeah.
That's consumer advocacy. Yes. So yeah, the inspection sticker on your car, that's part of consumer advocacy. It wasn't until really the 1970s that car inspection stickers became standard. The 1950s, the 1960s, it was normal for people to just go to a junkyard, buy pieces of a car, put it together and say, okay, it runs, and then just drive it down the road and crash and kill somebody. And it wasn't until really the mid 1970s that the government started creating very strict standards of what you could and could not drive on the road. Cars, motorcycles, things like that. Any motor transportation. So yes, in this country, there's a lot of consumer advocacy done by government. In developing countries, there's much less consumer advocacy, which means depending on where you live, you might have to worry when you buy medicine. I remember I spent almost a decade in China. If you buy medicine, there's a chance the medicine might not be real. It could be fake. So there are a number of ways you could test yourself as a consumer to figure out whether or not what you were buying was real. Usually you would want to get some imported medicine because most people didn't trust local medicine. They believed it was fake. Most people would pay more money to buy a foreign product that went through a government regulated process that was imported, and they'd pay a lot more money just so they knew the medicine wasn't going to kill them. Has anybody, or food products, a lot of people would buy food products and want to get something imported because they wondered, does this liquor poison me? Am I going to die if I drink this? And that was a very real concern. Has anyone experienced this? Living somewhere where you, before you make a decision to put something in your body, you have to think, how do I know this is what I think it is? Is this milk really milk? Is this flour that I'm going to make bread with really flour? How do I know it's not just chalk dust? Is this rice actually rice? Has anyone experienced this in their lives?
No.
Okay. Now, what if you live somewhere where you can't trust government and you have to find your own way to test the products that you use? What would you do? How would you test medicine? How would you test food? Your baby's sick. How you have to give your baby medicine. How do you know if the medicine's not going to kill your kid?
In animals?
That sounds like an expensive process.
Yeah.
Going to kill your dog every time you want to give your kid medicine.
Yeah. No.
Or are you just asking Illa to borrow? Can I borrow your bird? Well, oh, the bird's alive. Okay, give it to the kid.
But you can smell, you can
Smelling. Okay. What's another way?
Most of the on the medicine there is like they have the stamp on it, USDA approved.
Right, but what if you well, we in America take it for granted. We trust our government not to kill us. What if you can't trust your government? We buy something at the store and we eat it, drink it, and we don't die, and we just think, oh, that's nothing. There are many places in the world you can't trust government. Somebody in government will pocket some cash. They'll put a fake product on the market. It hurts people. It sends them to the hospital, and they can't trust government. What do you do if you can't trust government?
I think by experience,
Mm-hmm.
if you know, there's a lot of people who don't have go to the hospital, and when they have some kind of illness, they
Mm-hmm.
take vegetable. How can I say that? Plant.
Okay, so
Okay,
like
there's
they
something.
make their own medicine.
Yes, they make
Okay.
their own medicine.
Yeah, a lot of people do that around the world. Yes, make your own medicine.
Teacher, well, we Google it and see it, how is the rating and how the people think about this medicine.
We can hear you.
Oh yeah, I said what Anila was saying is smart. You could ask other people, consumer reviews. You can say, you could go online and say, did anybody else use this? Does it work? And if many people say, yes, it works, it's real, then maybe you could trust it. Can anybody think of another way?
you can go to.
In my country, they call them sheet doctor.
Tell us more
Yeah.
about this.
The sheet doctor was someone who can prepare the medicate. They know exactly the dosage.
Dosage,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, dosage. So we can believe in that kind of medicine, but in the government medicine, so we don't have enough We don't have enough.
People.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I remember a day they has medicam medic a medicam a medicate people drink it after it give them some problem.
Mm.
It's something about paracetamol, but it's the medicament from the company I forget the name I forget the name of the company, but I know there's a lot of people who have problem after drinking after taking the medicament and um,
So this is medication sold in Haiti?
no, the medicaments from another country, but it was expired.
Ah, okay. Very
But the
interesting.
government accept to sell the medicament for the people.
Okay. Very interesting.
Mm.
Very interesting. Sounds like a big problem. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to show you a commercial for a medicine for a toothache at a time when there was less regulation. Here it is. Okay. Whoop. I'll make this a little smaller. There we go. And I'll write here. And I'll write, what seems strange about this commercial? Okay. So this is an old commercial. I think it's circa 1895. What seems weird about this? What's strange about this?
It's a drug.
Cocaine, toothpaste.
Cocaine.
Yeah,
Trying to
You have
case.
two child in
there you go. They're advertising cocaine for what?
drug. I think it's
Tooth pain?
Toothache.
Today.
Yeah, yeah, for toothaches. Oh, what's wrong with that?
The cocaine? The name, teacher?
Oh yeah, and it's advertised for who?
child.
For children. Yeah. Yep, this is a real commercial. And this is the brand. It's called Lloyd Manufacturing Company, circa 1890s.
We see the price too.
Yep, 15 cents.
Mm.
Factor in inflation. It was worth more then.
For sale by all drugs.
Yep. So cocaine actually, it comes from our cocoa plant. It used to be a legal pharmaceutical, like a lot of things. So government's job is to regulate products, commercial products. And when sometimes products become illegal and sometimes they become legal. Like right now, marijuana is a legal recreational drug. For most of our lifetimes, it was illegal. Cocaine used to be legal and it was taken as a painkiller, but it was proven to be highly addictive and harmful to people. So government made it illegal. It's called prohibit. Government prohibited. The government decided to prohibit cocaine. There was actually a time from 1919 to 1933, believe it or not, you couldn't buy alcohol in America. And people would make their own beer and make their own liquor at home. And that period was called Prohibition. And it came also from this same time, the progressive era that we're reading about, the movement of prohibition. So it was, America went through a phase of being very, very unregulated in terms of business. So about 150 years ago, any business you wanted to start, if it's selling cocaine to children or opening up a factory and forcing people to work 15 hours a day, government wouldn't step in your way. It was not the government's business to get involved. I should say it like this. It wasn't government's business to get involved in business. And then gradually that changed. It took a long process, but that's what we're going to read about. And we'll use some of these warm-up exercises on page 34. Page 34, here we go. So I'm going to use my document camera. I'm going to stop sharing. Excuse me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Here we go. All right. So now I'm going to change my camera. There it is. All right. So we have former president, former police commissioner of New York. Somebody's alarm is going off. Oh, that was mine. Okay. Former police commissioner of New York, Theodore Roosevelt. And he was a president who really pioneered the role of government played in consumer advocacy. It was under his administration that both of these regulation groups, the USDA and FDA, were created. So what we're going to do here is we have a quote, one quote, and a second quote. We're going to read this together, and then we're going to read the second quote, and then I'm going to put you into breakout rooms to discuss your interpretation of what these quotes mean. So the first group will discuss quote number 1. Second group will discuss quote number 2. So this is a reading comprehension exercise. All right, that's crystal clear. Okay. It says, read these quotes from Theodore Roosevelt. Discuss what they mean with a partner. And I'm going to put you into small groups. What is President Roosevelt asking Americans to do? What is he warning against? Do I have a volunteer for quote number 1?
I will read it, teacher.
Go for it, Anila.
What petit tier?
Page 34.
34.
Let the watchwords of all our people be the old familiar watchwords of honesty, decency, fair dealing, and common sense. We must treat each man on his worth and merits as a man. We must see that each is given a square deal, because he is entitled to no more and should receive no less. The welfare of each of us is dependent fundamentally upon the welfare of all of us.
All right, that's quote number 1. And here is quote number 2. Who would like to read this?
Okay, I ready.
Go for it, Gene.
Our government, national and state, must be freed from the sinister influence or control of special interests. The great special businesses business interests too often control and corrupt the men and methods of government for their own profit. We must drive the special interest out of politics. The Constitution guarantees protection
Mhm.
protection to property, and we must make that promise good. But it does not give the right of suffrage to any corporation.
Very good, very good. All right, now there's two, one is a colloquial phrase in paragraph 1 I'm going to identify for. And this is called the square deal. Square means fair. Fair, even. Like the shape of a square. I'm going to do that with my fingers, like a square, even. So it's like an older version of American English. Are we square? Means all sides agree that's a fair deal. So square deal, square rhymes with fair. So in this context, he means fair. But this president was actually known for saying this quote, the square deal in consumer advocacy. He would say Americans deserve a square deal. What he means is fair. And this is a consumer advocacy speech. Suffrage in quote number 2, he's talking about democracy. The concept of suffrage means right to vote. And this was a time when women had not yet received the right to vote. Women in this country couldn't vote until 1921, and people pushing to give women the right to vote were called suffragists. Suffragists. And what he's saying is, it does not give the right of suffrage to any corporation. He's saying companies don't vote, the people vote. So the word suffrage means right, democracy, right to vote. The word square means fair, equal. All right, I'm going to separate the class into 2 breakout rooms. And what I'm going to ask you to do is look at the quotes together. Breakout room 1 will take the first. Breakout room 2 will take the second, and just talk to each other. What do you think the President Roosevelt is saying? So this quote is from 1903, and this one is from 1910. Here we go. The computer will decide which room you go to. So if you're in breakout room 1, you go to room 1. If you're breakout room 2, you go to room 2. Here we go. If you're in breakout room 2, you do quote number 2. Breakout room 1, quote number 1. Here we go.